Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Tuya Alamo, which is a very interesting knife for a number of different reasons. We're going to cover all of that, but mainly because it is an integral. So for those of you who maybe skipped the intro and you're coming back and you're like, oh my gosh, that price tag, it's an integral. And if you don't know what that means, it means that the frame was milled from one solid block of titanium versus what we typically see, which is a couple of pieces of material that are screwed together with fasteners and standoffs or backspace or something like that. This is substantially more expensive to do, even when it's done in China, which is why you don't generally see them priced much lower than about $400, right? Occasionally you do, but not usually. Thank you so much to my buddy Derek for sending this in, for loaning it to me. We'll go back to Derek when I'm done. I don't get to keep it. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok at _metal_complex. This is available. It's a limited edition knife. They made, I think, 145 of them. I'll link it down in the description. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. So let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. Actually, before we do that, you know what would be nice is if you knew the actual overall length of the knife. The Alamo coming in at 8 1/4. Cutting edge, blade length 3.65. Cutting edge about 3 1/4, thanks to a fairly large forward choil zone. You know what? I'm gonna come back on that. I'm gonna say it's about 3.5 inches, 3 1/4 on the cutting edge. All right, now for the size comparisons. Like I said, Original Goat and others linked in the description for scales up against the 8010 and 8020.5. This guy's coming in right about the middle zone, in between, if you will. What the heck am I talking about? Up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Very similar overall length to the Spyderco PM2. Obviously bigger than the Para 3. And then finally up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca, which is not that. It would be this knife. There you go. Okay, how's the action on this knife? Pivot action is wonderful, and access to the lock bar is great. It looks like there's a sharp shelf there. No, actually there is not. It's very easy to disengage. It's got some good tension. The detent on this thing is very nice. Very, very nice. In fact, it might be a little bit too nice. Or basically what I'm saying, it might be a little bit too heavy. I don't know that it's so much heavy, but it's the combination of the detent being heavy and the thumb studs not being positioned in the best place. If you remember when I unboxed this, I could not figure out how to deploy it. I went through a similar bit of a mess with my first XM18 and the thumb studs. I can get this now. The angle is it's just awkward, right? I'm used to thumb stud openers that just kind of go the way that I want them to, right? So I think see, like right there, once I start missing it, I'll miss it forever. And it'll just destroy my thumb. The thumb stud needs to be positioned differently, probably up a little bit, and I think the detent needs to be lightened up. The detent is very heavy. I very rarely say that, but I am going to say it this time. I think the detent is just a little too heavy for the position of the thumb studs. How does it front flip? Not very well. It's not satisfying, and there's just not enough grip. There's not enough leverage to do it exactly right every time. So a little bit underwhelming in the deployment department. However, if you practice at it, you'll get better. Most people are probably gonna destroy their thumbs in the process because it's just different than what we normally expect for a thumb stud opener. But you will figure it out if you really, really want to. And then the impact on your thumb will be a lot less over time. The pivot action is very nice. It runs on bearings. This one I think is pretty new. I mean, it'd have to be just released. But this will definitely achieve fall shut action over time, partially due to the pivot just being set up correctly and it's on bearings, but also because the weight and mass of the blade is pretty up there, right? So anyways, Carry profile, thickness up against the Spyderco Pair 3. It's not super thick, but it's definitely thicker than the Pair 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Pair 3. This is a fairly compact full-size integral. You will notice that it is full-size, and mainly you'll notice the weight. Integrals tend to be substantially heavier than their sandwich construction or pillar construction counterparts because there's simply more material. We have contoured, this is real nice, contoured titanium with carbon fiber inlays. They did a pretty good job with the inlays. There's a couple areas up here where I don't think they're perfect, but pretty good. I mean, there's just a lot of more detail than you might expect, right? So the weight on this thing is going to be heavier than, a normal, pillar construction counterpart, but pretty normal for an integral of this size. Honestly, not bad at all, 5.3 ounces. Ratios are definitely going to be in favor of the butt. Not bad, though, actually. I'm wrong. In favor of the butt. That's a new one. But actually, not bad. The blade is heavy enough that it's actually balancing things out right behind the pivot, which is where you want it. So that's cool. How about a hardware check? I'm going to get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. We're going to start off with a T8 here because I think that's everything. T8 for the stop pin, which actually is tucked away back there. I don't know why we had to have the screws. I guess because they have to push it's like a barrel that's, if you think about how they would get it in there, it's like a barrel that's perfectly spaced between these two pieces, right? And then they put screws in here. Whatever. Here's what they should have done. These standoffs, which look like they would be the stops, right? Now, this is common. We see this all the time. Strider, Hinderer XM18, the Umnumzan, they're all fine. These are all like long-term hard-use knives where the steel thumb studs contact a titanium frame, but since it's not one stop pin, it's two, there's plenty. Even though, a lot of times people say titanium galls and stuff like that, you got two surfaces, it should be fine for a lifetime, right? I've never heard of specifically the stop pins on any of those knives causing problems. They should have done that because, believe it or not, they don't actually touch, which is wild. They made the little spaces for them. Eliminate this so you don't have a visible screw here. Eliminate the stop pin down here and just make these touch up here, right? Weird, but okay. Anyways, if you want to take that out, that is a T8. Your LBS is a T8. Your pocket clip screw, very nice, just a single T8, right? And then there's nothing really on this side. You don't actually need to take any of these screws out to remove the only part of the knife you'll ever need to, which is the blade. This is an integral, so you just need to take the pivot screw out, and that's it. You can pull the blade out, right? That's pretty cool. I like that about integrals, and most of the time you'll never even need to do that. Compressed air, like some hot soapy water, compressed air, and then some lubricant is usually all you'll ever need, so that makes this type of knife really, really easy to take care of. If you want to take all this stuff out, as long as you have the right tools for the job, should be good to go. Okay, last thing we need to do here is measure the blade stock thickness. I'm going to guess that's probably at least 165, perhaps even thicker, because looks like a fairly robust blade. Yeah, it's even thicker than that, 180 thousandths or so. We're getting up there kind of in between Hinderer XM18 and XM24 thickness. Definitely on the thicker side. Let's go ahead and move into the meat and potatoes. I really like how this knife looks. The blade is not going to be for everybody, but essentially what we have here is a compound recurve Tanto clip point. Or something in there, right? A lot of people say, well, technically it's not a Tanto, even though you do have a change of blade angle. Traditionally, you wouldn't refer to this as a Tanto. Shut up! Shut your face! All right, don't you correct me. This is my rectangle. I could call this whatever I want, right? I could call this a camel. I could call this a horse toe if I wanted to. I could say anything. All right. So you just settle down there. Oh, geez, I need to calm down. I got so excited I spit all over this. Got to remember, I got to send this back to the guy. Sorry, Derek. Anyways, the blade is pretty wild, but I mean, in this territory, you got a lot of people looking for wild, right? You got people who want general utility, but at this price point, you're probably past the I just want utility phase in your pocket knife journey, and you're into the, I'd like it to cut, but I also want it to be kind of wild and crazy. And they did that. I'm not a huge fan of the belt satin finish. I kind of like I kind of like a little bit more of a special finish on my $400 knives, but it's not bad. I think they did a pretty good job. Tuya has traditionally had really, really great fit and finish, and this is clearly more of the same, right? It's just, in fact, I think this is even more impressive than the stuff that I've handled. This area here is hollow ground, so it is quite thin, and then we have a flat grind out here when it's much thicker, right? It's pretty darn robust for a clip point blade for sure. Sharpening this over time, unless you are Master Wizard level 9000 sharpening skill, this area will start to look like a poo-poo town. And that's just the nature of the beast. Or you can, not ever sharpen it and it'll always look the same, right? But if you're going to use it, this is going to, it's going to be a little awkward. Recurves are, I guess good for drawing material into the blade. But I'm not sure exactly what this is optimized for. Probably for looking cool for people who like this sort of compound setup. But it's cool, right? The lines are all over the place. Flat looks nice, extends to about 65% the length of the blade. Big swedge, really aggressive swedge there. Honestly, the blade is very aggressive in the coolest way possible, and I think it matches up really well with the handle. Just looks nice. Not the first time I've seen something like this, but it does look nice. The jimping is extended all the way out to, where it turns into the swedge, which is nice. It is functional. I think it could be a little bit better, but it is functional. Plenty of traction back here. Ergonomically, it's very open. The whole thing is open. You have a nice choke-up position. Not the absolute best ergonomics that I've ever felt, but it is nice. It's easy to hang on to. You have a pretty traditional knife handle, right? If you were to just see the handle, you think, well, the blade could look like anything. There's a lot of blades that go with that, right? A couple of little details that I like here. I always love to see what they do with the spine of an integral because it's just a big open canvas of material. We've just got some holes here, which is fine. It's a good look. Leaving it blank is also a good look. Texturing, right? Pinstripes, whatever. It all seems to work. They managed to fit in a lanyard spot back here. So there you go. Lanyard people rejoice. They have kind of an iced finish on the pocket clip. The pocket clip is super generic, and it kind of reminds me of the Sharp by Design clip. I mean, it might be almost identical. It's fine, right? Whatever. I doubt Brian Nadeau is going to get upset about somebody using a similar pocket clip shape, but it isn't sharp, and that iced finish is really nice. I'm convinced it goes with the knife, but it's kind of cool, right? It's a little detail. Another cool detail about this is all the hardware is black. Even like the lock bar insert is black. I kind of like that contrast, right? This side does not have any inlays, but there's enough black hardware that kind of still creates that contrast. And I think I like it. It's pretty cool. A lot of little details, right? It's not just the fact that this is an integral, right? Or that it's utilizing M390, which I didn't say, I don't think. Their hardness is, it says 61 plus or minus 1, I think is what it said. So it'd be 60 to 62, which is fantastic. That's what we want to see, right? People will be happy to hear that. But it's not just the fact that it's M390 hardened correctly. It's not just the fact that it's an integral. It's an integral that is contoured, much more expensive to pay for the machines that do that, right? That's factually true. Contoured integral with some pretty complex carbon fiber inlays and a milled, kind of stylishly finished pocket clip, right? And then the black hardware, I'm not sure that costs that much more, but a lot of extra stuff here, right? This wasn't a lazy integral. It's not one of those minimalist, like,
what we're going for is a minimalist design. So what we've created is, of course, simple rectangle for the handle and more of a triangle for the blade.
Great. Listen, I'm not trying to come down on anybody, right? I mean, I'm about to release my first design, and I'm about to get a taste of my own medicine because the thing's going to go out into the wild, and I'm probably going to hear some positive stuff and some negative stuff, right? But if your knife design idea is to create a minimalist rectangle-shaped handle with a simple drop point blade. I got bad news for you. That's been done about 400 billion times in the last 3 years. So we have enough of those. Then again, everything, I guess, has been done. So, you know what? You scratch that. Knock yourself out. Make whatever you want. But my main point here, got off on a little tangent there. This guy's so preachy. I don't know if I want to watch his content. The point I'm making here is that there's a lot of extra effort here. There's nothing lazy about this knife. Honestly, it's very well done. And that really makes it so difficult, reviewing this thing. It's because I like this. You don't need to spend this much money on a pocket knife to get a good knife. If you're considering this, you are probably a user/collector, and maybe you also use your knives, but you're like, yeah, I can get utility anywhere, right? But I'm bored of that. I want something a little bit cooler. This has what you want, especially if you're into integrals. It's really cool. It's very nicely made. It's very satisfying, right? But this thumb stud and detent combo, even though I'm doing it right now, I gotta be honest with you. Like, you might be watching this and thinking he's really over exaggerating. It doesn't look that hard at all. I'll just deal with it. I'm sure I could figure it out. The vast majority of you are gonna get this and go, he was right. I gotta be honest with you guys. I love this and I want to recommend it because if we're comparing apples to apples, not just titanium and M390. If you're going to compare other knives that are titanium and M390 and you're going to tell me you can get titanium and M390 knives for $150 to $200, great, but you're not comparing apples to apples. This is an integral, so you need to compare to other integrals, especially integrals that are about the same size and are also contoured with carbon fiber inlays, etc. There are other integrals out there that cost less, but they are not nearly the same high effort, right? So comparing apples to apples, this is pretty competitive. I've seen some nice ones that are nearly the same overall quality and execution, about $380 or so, but $400 is not bad at all. If this had a superb deployment and detent, I would be singing this thing's praises. But I'm telling you, that's really going to be the guillotine for a lot of you. So this is cool. I would love for them to do a version 2. I say, forget the front flipper. I think the front flipper phase is kind of like people kind of have found like what they're looking for there. I don't seem to hear as much like, oh my God, I have to have the front flipper. What you hear is I have to have a flipper, or I have to have thumb studs, or I have to have the opening hole. You generally don't get the I have to have the front flipper, right? So I would say skip that and either add a flipper, which would be phenomenal on this thing, or reposition the thumb studs probably further up, probably a slightly different shape. I would suggest something like this, and a little bit lighter on the detent, probably about 20% would be the way to go. If you want to power through it, you'll figure it out, but you're going to eat your thumb out. I will link this in the description. If you decide to power through, you will be very, very happy with the overall quality. Thanks again to Derek for sending this in. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex and on TikTok. we went the scenic route for that one. And on TikTok at _metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.